Black mothers died at a rate of 3.2 times than that of white mothers. 3.2 times. And then I found a new statistic using a new coding system. Researchers found that of the 658 women Welcome to our next episode of Mama Magnolia, where we talk about life and amazing experiences. Our goal, as always, is to inspire and encourage the woman, and hopefully from our life experiences, we encourage you today. I am just so excited because I get to have my best friend, my sister, Miss Mya Rose Perrier, here with us today. We have a really great just episode planned for you guys, and so we hope that her story will be of encouragement. And before we dive in, I wanted to start with a statistic on Black mothers and the mortality death rate. So we're talking about childbirth today. And according to the CDC pregnancy mortality surveillance system from 2007 to 2016, Black mothers died at a rate of 3.2 times than that of white mothers. 3.2 times. And then I found a new statistic using a new coding system. Researchers found that of the 658 women who died of maternal causes in 2018, Black women fared the worst, dying 2.5 times more, or they fared worse 2.5 times more than white women. So this is 37.1 versus 14.7 deaths per 100,000 live births, while Hispanic women had the lowest rate of maternal mortality. And basically, whether it's 2.7 times or 3.2 times, historically, Black women have had the highest maternal mortality rate. And researchers don't have a clear explanation, but what they suspect is a combination of institutional racism in society and the healthcare system. And so we see these statistics and we hear a lot about Black mortality, the rate. We know that it's high, we see it on Facebook. And I think a lot of times we see those statistics and we might think that they are fluffed up. But today I kind of wanted to shed light on a personal story that I've had happen within my circle. So just wanted to talk to you, Mya, about your personal birth story. Just even starting with pregnancy. I wanted to talk about your care. How did you feel about even just in your process of going to the doctor, getting your checkups? What was your experience like?
In general, just going to the regular OBGYN appointments, they were fine. I had rotating doctors, so I would go see a different one each time, but they explained to me that was because when you go into delivery, your one doctor might not be on call, so they wanted to make sure that you had seen every doctor that works through that organization, so that when you go in and to give birth, you're familiar with your doctor. So that part was fine. Everything was pretty much going smoothly right about until I was around 25 weeks pregnant. That's when things shifted. I had been experiencing contractions and I didn't know it. I was tightness across my belly when I was exercising, but I'm just thinking, I'm pregnant. I've never been pregnant before. That's normal. And my husband and I were out to dinner with friends, and in the middle of dinner, I passed out. And my husband, according to him, he said it was just surreal. He thought I had left him, but really, he said I just slumped and then I began to vomit, and all of a sudden, things got real in that moment because I'm 25 weeks pregnant. I come to, and thank God there was a midwife there, there was a nurse there, they're taking my pulse. Fast forward a little bit, I end up at the hospital in New York City at Mount Sinai, and they're checking everything. Apparently I had been having contractions. I was dilated 2.5 centimeters. So they gave me a shot to slow down the contractions and to strengthen his brain and just giving me information. That all, I stayed there maybe 3 or 4 days. And then when it's time to check out, I'm asking them, trying to get more information, on what happened. They don't know what happened. They just I say, well, should I go home and be on bed rest? And the nurse just looks at her form. Well, I don't see anything about that here. So no, I think you're fine. I think you can just continue your activity as normal, and everything's back to normal. So yeah, I think you're just good to go. I was like, really? She was like, yeah, I don't see anything here, so you're good to go. So we went and continued on as the doctor suggested, and exercising, going about our ordinary activities. And I'm a dancer, and so I was in rehearsal doing mild movement. Best day ever. The next morning, this is about, well, let me back up a little bit. Even before that, like about 5 days later, I had a appointment with my personal doctor, and she checked and she told me she thought I was about 3 centimeters dilated. And she said, normally when I'm looking at you, I would have be sending you to the hospital right now. I said, well, I just came from the hospital and they just sent me home. And she was like, well, they said 2.5 and you're at 3. It could be the same. People's fingers are different sizes. And so she said, okay, well, since they just discharged you, then I'm going to go ahead and let you go back home. And as I said, now after that, that's when I went to dance rehearsal. The following day at like 5 a.m., me and my husband just wake up. We normally sleep to about 7, but we were just like, hey, how you doing? How you doing? And he goes to the bathroom, and I get up to go into the kitchen, and my water breaks. So now we're at 27 weeks, 26 and a half weeks. And I'm like, oh my God. We get in the car. Everything's soaking wet. Don't have a plan. Don't have a backpack. Don't have anything. We're just touch and go. We go down the hill, get to the hospital. The hospital says, your baby's too small. Your baby's too young. We can't serve you. We'll have to send you off somewhere else. So they do some basic tests, and we had a doctor in there with horrible bedside manner. I mean, he just looked like he don't know what was going on. But the nurse was very nurturing. She seemed like she had it all together. Mind you, my pants are drenched. Everything is drenched. The doctors were like, well, I just need to see if your water broke. My husband said, sir, her pants are drenched.
Right.
And I was like, well, excuse me, sir, if you don't mind, if you can just let the nurse check. He was like, well, no, I'm the only doctor who's allowed to do this portion of the exam. So I looked at my husband. This man gonna come to the end of the bed, lift up my little dress, and see the puddle of water underneath me and be like, oh yeah, your water broke.
Right.
I was over it. Just at that moment, just looking at the incompetency and just the bedside man, it was crazy. So they ship us 45 minutes out to another hospital. I get to that hospital, and then the doctor looks at me, he examines everything, and he says, based on everything that's going on, your contractions and everything that I see, you're going to give birth in the next 3 to 10 days. And I'm like, excuse me?
So I kind of want to it's even leading up to this point, that's a lot that has happened.
Yeah.
And it's your first time as a mother, you have no idea what to expect. And just the simple fact that you went to a doctor, you went to your primary doctor.
Yes.
And your primary doctor, it seemed like she just let you go based off of the other doctors who had no experience with you or no relationship with you.
Yes, definitely.
She let you go, which is completely
mind-boggling.
Yeah, I don't understand. That doesn't make sense to me.
I could tell even she was hesitant because she said, normally I send people to the hospital
right
at this point. And she said, I'm not sure why they sent you home, and she said she looked through the paperwork. She said, no, just seriously, you're released to go home. And everything seems to be exactly the same as it was when you were there. So she released me to go home. And that, I think, was a mistake. And that could have cost my child his life.
Right.
In transportation, going to one hospital that's unprepared, going to another hospital, and in all of that process, that could have been prevented if I had just been kept at Mount Sinai. you know.
During your time at the hospital the first time, were they doing cervical checks? Like when you were in the hospital 3-4 days, were they?
Yes.
So they were checking your cervix
Yes.
each and every time, which is interesting to me because a lot of times, even if you have on gloves, even if you have, you know, you've washed your hands, all of that, whatever's in the air, you're bringing it back in. And that very well could have caused even more issues for you in that it can cause infection. And they could have made matters worse, but you wouldn't know that.
No, I wouldn't know. And
You're just trusting a professional.
yeah, and I went to the doctor even the first time was because the midwife told me you need to get your baby checked out. And I thank God that she did, because what they believe happened was they thought he was trying to leave.
Right.
When my body shut down and I passed out, they believe that my body naturally started to try to give birth to my son at that time, and that's what they think caused me to dilate,
Right.
begin dilation. They don't know for sure, but
Yeah.
that, you know, so there's something there. And then also, even if they had sent me home, they didn't send me home on bed rest.
Right.
They said
Yeah.
to continue doing what you already do. I'm an active person. I'm a dancer. That's
Right.
what I do.
Was that something that they asked you before you left, like what kind of lifestyle you had?
They did not ask me. I asked them
Okay.
what I was allowed to do, because I knew I'm an active person.
Right.
And I thought to myself, they wouldn't know that, so let me just find out what I'm allowed to do. And she said, you're allowed to go on as you were before.
Because you say your normal activity, but they didn't know that your normal activity was dancing. I'm
Right.
sure, I don't know, I just feel like that's something that you should have been asked. You wouldn't know to even ask
No,
that.
she just said continue your normal activities.
Okay. Wow. So
Yeah.
you went on the next day, you danced, you performed, your water broke, and now you're at a hospital and you're trying to figure out. So you've gone to a second doctor who again is trying to put his hand on the inside of you. And I kind of just want to make a note about this. As a woman, you have a right. I think a lot of times we feel like we have to do exactly what we're told to do, but we don't know that we have rights. You have a right, unless it's medically necessary, you have a right to refuse cervical checks and multiple cervical checks, because again, while you may have on gloves, you know, like some people may be allergic to latex and they have no idea, and you're causing an infection, you're causing more problems. And that's something to just be aware of, you know. So fast forward to your experience now, you're at the doctor, you found a doctor.
I'm at St. Joseph's Hospital. The hospital itself is significantly a lot less posh than the one in New York, but it just happened to have the best neonatal doctor in New Jersey working there, and he had my case. So I was like, thank you, Father, for that. That was important. But what I didn't know was that he doesn't do natural births, because most of his children that he deal with are premature. It's safer for them, they say, to come through C-section. So I didn't understand when he was like, oh yeah, your son is probably going to be here within the next 3 to 10 days. I'm thinking I'm going to give birth to him.